Hi, welcome to Napa Valley's 2024 election coverage from here from Napa Valley Television. I'm Ralph DeAmicis.
I'm Lahni DeAmicis.
And we're going to be your anchors tonight, and it's a very exciting election. I don't think in all our years, I don't think I've ever seen an election that's gotten so many people involved. And locally, we have a lot to talk about as well, because we have elections going up and down the valley. But we're going to be talking with various people during the evening. We have our reporters out in the field. Rose Sheehan has been out talking with people this evening, and she's going to be moving her way up the valley and talking with various different candidates. We have a wonderful interview with John Tudor, our Registrar of Voters.
Everything you ever wanted to know about the voting process in Napa.
Exactly. And we do these with them every couple of years, and we keep getting better and better at it because the process is incredibly complicated and incredibly secure, so we should always be very confident about that.
And just a reminder, we're streaming live on NapaValleyTV.org. So.
Exactly, and also, NapaValleyTV.org is a great place anytime there's an emergency, because we post all the emergency information on that site. I talked to someone the other day, and they didn't realize that we had a television station. We've been here for over, 40 years plus, and they just didn't notice. But our television is very deeply involved into our community, and if you ever watch the community meetings, the meetings from the various different cities, that's Napa TV who's running all of that. So keep that in mind.
And so the cities are American Canyon, Calistoga, St. Helena, and Yountville.
Exactly.
Together with Napa.
And they're all having elections tonight. A couple of mayor races, a couple
council races,
and of course we have our bonds going on. We have our various different
school boards
going on as well.
Trustees, right?
Once again, there's a very important bond going on to help pay for our school upkeep. This is the second time that we've been voting on this. This was out there before, where we voted on. I think was it $35 million to repair the buildings, and last time it missed passing by like 58 votes. But it's up there again because these schools really do need to be, repaired.
Yeah.
And we also have a really interesting thing. Our Kristen Miller, one of our reporters, went out and talked to people beforehand about the upcoming election. And it's an especially fun one because she decided to go out on Halloween, which, if you know what Napa is like in Halloween, it's a place that takes Halloween really seriously. So I'm expecting some really interesting interviews to come out of that. And it's going to be interesting talking with various different people. One of the people we're going to be talking with is John Tudor, the Napa mayor, who is running for re-election this year. And I'm sorry, not John Tudor. Scott Sedgley. I'm confusing them. See, I've been spending too much time with the two of them, and they don't look anything alike.
They don't look anything alike at all.
Anything alike.
You know what? Your glasses are right here.
Oh, yes.
Maybe that would be helpful.
That would be nice. So I think we have a really interesting evening coming up. I know the national elections are really. Lahni and I have been voting for, quite a few years, and I can't remember any election quite like this. Besides the fact that we have, our second major woman candidate, a woman of color, someone from the Bay Area, someone who was our state senator, someone who was the district attorney of San Francisco.
But you know what? You can get the national news anywhere, anytime. Yes. We are here to focus on the local issues because this is where we live, and this is the issues that are going to be important to us, and we want to make sure that we know what's going on in our own backyard. And we're about to go to John Tudor.
No, not quite. We're not there yet. I tell you, doing this interview with John Tudor is always interesting, because he's been doing this for a very long time, and he takes this so seriously, So
we should be looking at what the local candidates are?
Yes. So, of course, like I said, in the city of Napa, Scott Sedgley is running for re-election. Yes. Oh, thank you.
And we're going to start with American Canyon. There's a mayoral election in American Canyon. Yes. Pierre Washington and David Oro are the candidates.
Yes, I believe they're both currently councilmen, and they're both running to be mayor. Okay, and then we also have 4 people running for the city council as well. Brando Cruz,
Davet Mohammed, Melissa Lamatina, and Elmer Andre Manade.
Yes. So, and there's two openings for them, of course.
Exactly.
And then the city of Napa, as I mentioned, Scott Sedgley is running for re-election.
Who looks nothing like John Tudor.
Nothing like
No.
John Tudor. Sorry. And then Tuesday, Allison, who's a complete newcomer to this, is running against him.
Then we have City Council in Napa. Both of these seats are uncontested, so we'll be seeing Beth Painter and Bernie Narvaez again
Yes.
as incumbents
Yeah, and I think
after the formality.
yeah, and I think they've really done a wonderful job, to tell you the truth. I think they've been excellent council people, but very, very involved. And then the town of Yountville.
2 of these candidates will be elected. There are 4, Robert Moore, Pam Reeves, Joe Tagliaboschi, and Eric Knight.
Yes, and yes. And then the city of St. Helena, we have the mayor race, which is Paul Doring and Billy Summers.
And Paul is the incumbent.
Is the incumbent, yes. So, and then the city of St. Helena City Council, there's
Again, 2 candidates out
spots.
of these 3. Right. Aaron Barak, Michelle Deasy, and Hector Marroquin.
yes. So none of them are incumbents. They're all newcomers to the council, which to this should be, it's good to see some fresh blood coming in.
Exactly.
It's considering how many races, like for instance, the city of Calistoga, we have the mayor, Donald Williams, who's the incumbent, is running unopposed. So getting people involved is not the easiest thing. So it's nice to see some newcomers coming into the field.
And how about, I'm
The
sorry,
city of Calistoga City Council. There's 2 candidates will be elected. There's 3 people: Iris Lopez Ortega, Marian Villalba, and Lisa Gift. Usually, I'm better with the Spanish names. So you have to forgive us a little bit. We only do this every 2 years, so it's not like something we get to practice a lot. So, and as we're, and every year we have to really spend quite a bit of time looking at the various different candidates. And now we have the trustees.
the
Napa Valley.
trustees for the Napa Valley Unified School District. The areas, area 2, 4, 5, and 7, I believe, all are having elections for trustees.
Yes.
And in area 2, our own Kevin K-Dub West,
Yes.
who's on our board here, and Lisa W. Chu, she would be the incumbent
Yes.
running for that trustee position.
Yes. And then for number 4 is Eve Reeser, and who is an incumbent, and Devin Jones. And then
Area 5, the incumbent is David T. Garcia, and running against him is John Henry Martin.
And finally, in area number 7 is Marie Dennett, and the incumbent is Juliana Hart.
So those are the board members,
Exactly.
or the trustees for the school board.
Exactly, and with no light task. So now we're gonna look at the interview we did with John Tudor as he takes us through the voting office and shows us how our votes are tabulated.
I'm John Tudor, Registrar of Voters for Napa County, and I wanted our viewers to understand exactly what the election happens behind the scenes. So if you'll follow me, we'll take a look down here. So the ballots come back in tubs from the post office. About 50% of our 60,000 ballots will come back through the post office, and all those ballots are run through this machine. And what this machine does is 2 things. It reads the envelope, which has a barcode on it, which I'll show you in a minute. It reads this barcode so it knows which voter has voted. and then it takes a picture of the signature on the envelope, which is right in this area. I'm going to cover it up so we don't expose it. And that is then, and it's also sorting the ballots into supervisorial districts, which is our first sort. Then if you'll come outside with me, we'll show you where the signatures go. So many people do not realize that we check every signature on every one of those 60,000 ballots with human eyes. And that's what's happening out here. So we usually have 6 regular staff members. We now have 86 for the few weeks before and after the election, which help us conduct the election. And this wonderful team here is reviewing those signatures that the machine just took a picture of. And what we do is, if you'll come around this way, we compare the signature in our database with the signature on the envelope. So this is the signature on the envelope, this is a signature in our database, and we can look at more signatures. We have a lot of different signatures. We can also look at the signatures of everyone in that household to make sure that somebody didn't sign the ballot by mistake. So if these people like the signature, then the ballot is considered good. It goes through that machine again before we count it, and that machine also slits off the bottom of the envelope. And then follow me and we'll show you what happens next. We don't have it happening today, but it will start happening on Friday. So we will have citizens like ourselves who are paid to come and help us take the ballots out of the envelope, and we will show you, or I'll describe that process so that you can see how carefully we treat each ballot. So this room will be set up with 4 tables rearranged with 4 Napa County citizens at each table. The ballot envelopes are brought to the middle of this large table, and as they remove the ballot is kept folded so that nobody knows whose ballot it is. Once all the folded ballots are in the middle of the table, the envelopes are taken off the table and put in buckets, and we keep those envelopes in case there's ever a question. Then these 4 people open the ballot, and what they're doing is they're checking to make sure that our machine can read the ballot. Sometimes there's coffee stains on the ballot. Sometimes when people try ripping off the stub at the top of the ballot, they actually rip the ballot. We've had dogs eat ballots, and they still mail them back. So those ballots, which are damaged, are put in a special blue bag, and at the end of the election, we duplicate those ballots with one person reading the original and the other person marking the duplicate. They're both numbered with the same number, so we can always find that ballot if there's ever a question as to whether the person duplicated it correctly. So once the ballots are unfolded, they've been checked, they're ready to count, they go in those boxes at the back of the room, and those boxes are sealed with the signatures of all 4 of the people who opened the ballots. Then the sealed box is brought into our counting room. And I just want to mention the reason we verify the signature is that that's our control, that the person whose ballot is inside the envelope is the person who voted it. Now, if the ballot signature doesn't match on the envelope, we send them a letter and say, your signature doesn't match, what happened? And then they have an opportunity to come and correct it. If at the end they don't return the letter, I personally look at every single finally challenged signature because I'm not going to take away someone's right to vote unless I do that myself. And I clear many even at the end. I've probably looked at 10,000 signatures in my time. And so I'm pretty good at figuring out that little squiggle matches that little squiggle. I do the same process they're doing and look at all those signatures and see if I can find that it matches. So the sealed boxes come in here. Thank you, everybody. Famous TV stars. So what we're doing over here is one of my jobs is to make sure every registered voter gets a ballot to vote on and that they vote. So what this machine is doing, it's printing envelopes to send ballots to people who just registered to vote. People could register to vote up until Monday, October 21st at 5 p.m., and actually until midnight online, and we're now sending them their ballots. And those ballots will go out in the mail today, and they'll have them in plenty of time to vote. Now, if someone hasn't registered, California now allows registration in person beginning today, all the way to and including 8 p.m. on Election Day. When they come in person, they can register, and they also have to vote right there. It's called conditional voter registration, and we count the great majority of those because the person just was late registering and is a perfectly qualified, eligible citizen. So the sealed boxes, like this one, these are live ballots that people have been casting in our office. They'll be counted second on election night. Our vote by mail ballots get counted first, and this is the seal. And every time a box is unsealed, it's sealed again. If you look carefully, there are about 8 seals on this box because we keep opening it, putting new ballots in, and sealing it again. And every time the 2 people who put it in there sign the seal. And there are always 2 people around ballots. It's never just one person. California law requires every ballot, when it's in transport, whether it's in an envelope or live, to have 2 people involved for security's sake. So those sealed boxes, like that one, will come here, and then they'll be unsealed and counted by these 2 machines. These machines do 2 things at once. They count both sides of the ballot. There are 2 cards in this election, and they count both sides of both cards, and they take a picture of both sides of both cards. So this is our ballot for this election, very important presidential election. There are 2 cards, 2 sides. The machine counts these little red dots that are marked by the voter. It can't read anything else. It only reads the red dots wherever they are. And so we tell the machine to give us pictures of 3 kinds of ballots. The first ballot we tell it to kick the picture out is if it's blank. It can't read anything. And some people, for instance, decide to vote the first card, or maybe even just for president, and not vote the others, but they still put everything back in the envelope. They're very neat voters, and mail it back to us. So this second card would be blank, and that picture comes over here, and we have human eyes, who are county employees, who will see that picture, and they'll make sure it's really blank. Because sometimes some voters don't understand the instructions, and instead of marking the little red dot, they'll circle the name of the person they want. California law says if this human being can determine that this voter wanted to vote by circling the name, we'll cast that ballot for them. Now, when we do that, this machine puts language at the bottom of the picture. So it's a new picture now with a vote cast, and it says that vote was cast on this machine at this time, and each one of the people working here log in to a book and say, I'm here from 11:16 a.m. till 12:25 p.m., and that picture we can then identify who cast that vote. So the second thing that the machine spits out for us is sometimes someone will be voting, let's say they pick this person, I won't put exactly who it is, but then they get into an argument with their spouse or their brother, and the brother convinces them to vote for the other person. So what they do is they cross out the first vote, they mark the second vote, and they circle the name and write yes. So again, we tell the machine if both of these are marked, that's called an overvote. An overvote doesn't count in that race. It doesn't hurt the rest of the ballot. Everything else counts. But we want to make sure every vote counts. So that picture will come here. The person will see the intent of the person was to vote for the one where they wrote yes, and they'll remove this vote, making the vote good for this person. And again, that will be noted on the picture so we know who did it and why they did it. And of course, we have the paper ballot always, which isn't changed, which shows what was done and how we interpreted it. Then the final thing that happens is California allows for write-in voting, and machines can't read handwriting. So if someone marks this and writes a name in, it comes over here. Now, to be a qualified write-in candidate, you have to file nomination papers on a different schedule than regular nominees, and then we get a list of the qualified write-ins. I'll guarantee you there'll be 15 people who write in for the President of the United States, and we'll have all their names. I don't think I've ever seen one of them get a write-in vote. So, but what happens usually, there's two things that happen. People decide to be silly and write in Donald Duck. Now, if they thought they were being silly and they really wanted to vote for somebody, tough. If they do both, that's an overvote. We're not going to remove Donald Duck. They made a mistake. They did it wrong. They messed up their ballot. But if they wrote in something here and it was a qualified write-in candidate for president, we would mark that. And the machine also, besides this list, has the names of all the qualified candidates for this person to see. The other thing that happens, which happens frequently, is the person doesn't understand what they're doing, and they think that if they vote for president, they also have to write the name in. So they'll mark this for president, and then they'll write the same name here and mark this. Well, that's an overvote. But this person can tell that they just didn't understand, and they really wanted to vote for the person up here, and we'll remove this write-in, because we have to remove or qualify every write-in, and we get 3,000 to 4,000 write-ins that we have to look at out of those 60,000 ballots. So it takes a lot of time and county money to do it, but as I said, my job is to make sure that every vote counts. And then once that's done, these are sealed again, stored in here, kept for 22 months. And then in California, the last piece of the puzzle is what we call a manual tally. So on election night at 8 p.m., our computer system will generate a list of 3 precincts out of our 204 at random, in which we have to hand count every race on every ballot. And then it'll spit out a number of other precincts that have races that weren't on those first three. So let's say there's a race in Calistoga and the first three was from St. Helena, American Canyon, and Napa. We have to pick a Calistoga precinct. Those are all looked at. So when that happens, we go back in that room where the 4 people are around the table. We take all of those precinct paper ballots, we print out all of the paper images from those ballots to make sure that it was adjudicated correctly. We take those in there. One person reads, another person watches the person read to make sure they read it right, and then 2 people have big tally sheets on which they make red marks to make the count. So we'll do that with about 2,000 ballots that we look at with human eyes and recount to make sure that the machine count is correct. And then once that's done, I believe every vote's been counted, then I do what's called certify the election. And in this year, we have special rules that say I cannot certify until December 3rd, which is 30 days after the election. Actually, it's 28 days after the election. That's the earliest I can certify. Once I certify, then those results are taken to the Board of Supervisors, they're sent to the Secretary of State, and that becomes the final vote for President of the United States, for U.S. Senate, for State Assembly, for U.S. Congress, and for local races like mayor. The measure's on the ballot, and that point, the election's over. So there's really a huge effort done by all counties, whether you're Los Angeles with 5 million registered voters or Napa County with 85,000 registered voters or Alpine County with 800 registered voters. The same thing goes on. We need our regular staff who get everything ready, send the lists of voters who are supposed to get ballots. There's 6 of them. Then, as I said, we hire 80 additional people to run our vote centers and to help us check signatures. And then, of course, we have our computer system. There are 2 of them. One of them keeps track of registered voters. The other one is the one that runs this machinery. And I do want to say, people are concerned about election integrity. Let me explain. In this room, there is a locked door with an alarm, and up there is a camera which is constantly on, watching what's going on in this room. And in addition, the machines, the servers that do all of this, that count the ballots, that get ready to count the ballots, are in this locked steel box. So if somebody were going to try, and one last thing, this box is only plugged into the wall. Its only connection to the world is the PG&E connection. There's no network, there's no wireless, there's no internet. And that's true of my 7,000 colleagues across the country. All of them have their machines, what's called air-gapped from the world. So nobody can hack into this machine unless they break through that door, wave to the camera, and break into this machine. Now, you think we'd notice that, right? So they can't hurt this election because every night after we've counted, we back up the entire election onto a hard drive, which is about this big, which we take out of here and put in a secure place. So even if it wasn't a malicious actor and it was an earthquake or a fire or a flood, we could take that hard drive and go to a county that uses this system and start over again. We could count nights while they count days, and we could produce our election results. We could handle our ballots in another facility, whatever we needed to do. So we're not only secure, but we are prepared for any kind of natural disaster or any attempt to disrupt the election.
Well, Well, that was everything you always wanted to know about how the elections are handled here in Napa. And I just want to take a minute to say, hopefully everybody has voted, but if you haven't already voted, you can still vote in person. And the locations where you can vote are in American Canyon. You can vote at the Holiday Inn or the Boys and Girls Club. In Napa, you can vote at Harvest Middle School or La Flores Community Center or the Napa County Election Division. In Yountville, you can vote at the Yountville Community Center. St. Helena, you can vote at the Napa Valley College Upper Valley Campus. And in Calistoga, you can vote at the Calistoga Community Center.
And now we're going to look at the propositions. There's quite a few this year, and we have a lot to say about them because this is California. We vote on everything.
We're going to start.
It seems like the St. Helena, with their measure A1, is finally addressing an issue that's been plaguing them for a number of years because they've been in fiscal trouble multiple times. I remember at one point, I think they were considering, could they support their library because their tax revenues were not strong enough. And part of the issue is that they're a non-charter city and they want to, through the measure, become a charter city, and that would allow them to enact taxes locally to support, their basic infrastructure, their organization, to make sure that it continues to be a great place to live.
Well, and it seems other people think that's a good idea because there's no opposition filed on that. So.
And in the same way that A1 was addressing issues of taxes for St. Helena, A2 is also addressing this, but this is by using a tax for when property is sold, but only property over $1 million, although I suspect in St. Helena that's most of them.
Exactly.
It's probably our most expensive town in the valley. But this way it would go between 1.5% to 3% on that, and this would help fund the infrastructure. Once again, this is an ongoing issue for them. As they describe it in their measure, we can't keep kicking the can down the road with this. They really need to address it. And that's good to see they finally are.
And it's nice to see that there's no opposition filed against it. I mean, I think they realize that something has to be done, and this is the way you fix it.
Exactly. St. Helena's been really working on their issues, and one of the things that's interesting is that their measure B is about creating a winery and agritourism overlay. And what it's going to allow is for a resort hotel development on a certain winery property. And what they're talking about is Charles Krug. As you know, the Charles Krug Winery is Napa's oldest running winery. It's a very, very large property, and a developer wants to put a hotel on the property. And this would be a great boon for the city because one of the people don't realize, if you're not in the tourism industry, that right around St. Helena, there's very few hotel rooms. When you get to that heart of the valley, there's just a few. You have Meadowwood on one side. You have another one right off Lodi, but there's not a lot in that area compared to Calistoga and compared to the city of Napa. It really is almost a little desert there for hotel rooms. And having another resort there would make a big difference. And because it's in the city of St. Helena, it would really help their tax revenue.
So the argument against it is that certain hotel groups are the developers for this St. Helena Resort project, and they say that they just put that on the initiative to bolster their own income.
Well, but is that necessarily a bad thing?
And that's what I say. Right. It still needs to be decided. Usually the no arguments are very helpful in making people's decisions, but this one really isn't.
So locally, this Measure B has come around again. Not that again, but we had voted on this before to vote for money for the schools, $230 million to repair our school system, or the infrastructure, the physical buildings. Many of these these buildings go back 60 years. Now, I don't know if there's any 60-year-olds out there, but how are you feeling? How's your maintenance been? So, the need for this is, common sense, but also there's about 100 trailers that kids are actually being taught in, and a lot of those, portables, and those are 25 years old. And they, are not designed to be long-term solutions. So this is why we're voting, and, this is the second time this has come up. And personally, I think it's very, very needed.
And the no argument for this includes the fact that they say that we're already paying on bonds from 2002, 2006, 2016. But, you know, you can't stop in the middle of maintenance for the schools. And I don't think that if they don't have enough money to really affect these repairs, then the bonds that were done before will be for what?
Yeah. And this is,
So,
people don't realize, many people don't realize, unless you have children in the school here, that Napa schools are funded at the absolute minimum. And it has to do with because of the fact that the city has a very large working class community. We're farm country. We're farm country with great restaurants, but we're still farm country. And so the real estate taxes that fund our schools really do not come up to what you would find, for instance, even in St. Helena or Calistoga. They're actually funded per student much higher than we are here. So this type of additional bond is really valuable.
well, and so to ask that they be, that the funds be administered better and used better is a valid point for the no argument, but it's not necessarily a point to negate the need for additional funds. So we have Measure G, which asks if the city of Napa should impose a 1% sales tax for government purposes. And these would be used for things like the streets, first responders, public services, the parks. I think everybody pretty much wants those things to be taken care of. I know I vote for streets.
Well, the challenge is it's another 1% on the sales tax. And a lot of people who live here are working class, and an additional 1% on things, it starts adding up in the course of the year. On the other hand, Napa's gone through kind of a real shift ever since 2005 when they started redesigning the river, and we started developing a really big, vibrant tourism industry in our downtown. So I think part of what they're thinking on this, it's my assumption, is that they are assuming that because those areas, are bringing in so much money from outside the area, that we can harvest some of that money and use it for the rest of the city. But it is harder on the locals who live here.
Measure U is a continuation of a 5% transportation tax, sales tax, for the roads and street repairs and highway improvements. So we already have this 5% tax, and it would just extend it.
I don't know if people might realize that Lahni and I run a tour business, so we're up in the county a lot. So we would like better roads, to tell you the truth.
Well, I think most people agree that the roads could use a little bit of help.
Yeah, and as anytime anyone wants to develop a winery or a vineyard up in the hills, one of the issue comes up many times is the road good enough to support the additional traffic? And the Restoration Hardware recently purchased the old Jackson Soda Canyon Springs, and they're planning on doing something up Soda Canyon, which is a very substandard road. So I imagine that part of the issue they're going to have is how do they correct the road if they actually want to be able to bring people up there?
Well, and I just want to mention that this might be seen by some people as a duplication of Measure G, which would add another 1% sales tax, but at least the 5% continuation of the 5% transportation sales tax would probably is also going for the streets and roads, whereas the G was going for other things as well.
Yeah, and where it's, G is the city of Napa, and of course, U is the whole county of Napa. Prop 2 is all about authorizing enough money to repair schools, and that's from K-12 up through community colleges. It also includes the technical colleges, and it's a $10 billion bond, and it's going to increase, state costs about $500 million annually for 35 years to repay the bond. The Teachers Association are very much behind it, the school nurses, and the only people really against it are the taxpayer associations.
Well, and I think it's important to understand that these buildings already exist, and they have a lot of dangerous situations that need to be remediated. And some of the people are saying that the enrollment is low, why put all the money into the schools? But number one, if we can make the schools better, and then there's another prop along the way where we can make affordable housing more reasonable. If people can live here, maybe we'll need those schools, or we can use those school buildings for something else. And so to have these buildings and just neglect them doesn't make any sense at all to me.
It makes me wonder a little bit how much climate change is impacting the buildings. Increasingly additional heat, and fires and smoke and such.
Right, and they're very old. Some of them haven't been updated in tens of years. So
Yes.
they really, we live in a wonderful place. We shouldn't neglect our resources.
You can see how it got on the ballot.
Exactly. Prop 3 is the proposition about same-sex marriage, and we're going to finally codify that in law. Although that's been a situation that has been widely accepted in California for a while.
And it's a federal law already, but at least now we're going to change our constitution so the language is in line with what we're actually doing.
And they're just going to change the language from marriage being something, a contract between one man and one woman, and strike that part of that language, as I understand it.
So there's no financial impact. It's entirely legislative. This one, it seems to be popular with everyone because it's all about clean water, it's about fighting the fires, it's about basic health, and of course all the firefighter organizations are behind it, water organizations are behind it. The only ones who seem to be against it are the taxpayer organizations. Seeing the kind of issues that we've had especially since 2017 with increased fires, it's not surprising. Of course, every time you have a big fire, water becomes an issue because the water can become polluted from the fires.
Exactly. And of course, they call it Prop 4 the climate bond because, climate has really changed everything. So $10 billion seems like a lot to spend, but we've had, disasters and things that affect this or were affected by this that have cost a lot more. And, it's an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure.
Well, right now up in the Northeast, not even in California, there's a whole string of fires running up through Massachusetts, Connecticut, and into the Northeast, in an area that has never been especially prone to fires. And yet now they're starting to suffer from it as well. They get a lot more rain than we do in California.
Call me a mother, a grandmother, a great-grandmother, but, these housing issues are so important for people to have the housing that they need, and this is the Prop 5 for the housing, and it is a prop that wants to allow for making affordable housing more easy to clear to get made.
With a 55% vote now.
Exactly, changes the vote strategy.
Yeah. And it also addresses infrastructure issues as well, like for instance school systems. And we, of course, in the last cycle of voting, our infrastructure bill was knocked down by like 54 votes because I think it was a 60% we had to reach, and we just couldn't quite get there.
And is anybody against this?
There's a couple of organizations against it, but among others who are for it are Habitat for Humanity, which kind of is a pretty virtuous organization, of course.
Well, people need housing. There's no question about that.
Yes, you have to fix the buildings.
And they should be able to afford to live in housing nearby where they work, not have to drive for an hour or more to get to work. So,
well, it's a lot easier many times to repair the buildings you have than have to build everything brand new again. I mean, even our city hall in Napa was built in 1951, and before COVID, and I guess it was before COVID, they were planning on completely redoing a new building, and it was a big issue because it was a lot of money. But they have a building that's sitting downtown where it's accessible to everybody, and people are kind of a little resistant to losing that accessibility. So it's worth it to spend the money. I think it's worth it to spend the money to repair them. This is an interesting one because it basically says that prisoners, incarcerated people, cannot be forced to work. And it's interesting because there's many places where prison labor is an important part of the economies. And there's been a lot of scandals about that in different parts of the country where, they were purposely incarcerating more people so they'd have more basic slave labor. And I think this does kind of address that.
That is exactly what I've called it, slave labor. And at least this will give prisoners a choice and possibly even some compensation for doing the work that they were doing with no choice and no pay.
Well, I think many times in some prisons, for instance, prisoners do make a very small amount of money, which they can use for buying things in the prison stores. But it's still, it's a tiny fraction of what they would have made on the outside world.
Well, it's a question of choice.
It's a question of choice.
Give them the
Exactly.
choice.
Exactly.
Prop 32 addresses the minimum wage, and some raises are scheduled incrementally to get the hourly minimum wage up to $18 over a period of time. I think it's going to go to $17 first, and then $18 an hour would be the final minimum wage by 2026.
What's interesting, of course, the ones who are against this are the restaurant owners, the greengrocers and such. But what's really interesting that when California raised the minimum wage for fast food restaurants,
To $15.
$15, they say, oh, the costs are all going to go up and they're going to have to fire a lot of people. And what they found instead was that, no, they found other work for people to do inside the restaurant.
None of that happened. The workers were happier. They worked better. They, all the benefits and none of the, downfalls that they predicted happened.
Well, it's funny. It goes back to Henry Ford, who, paid his workers well and made a car that was affordable because he wanted his workers to be able to afford to buy the car he was making. And they're still in business. So there could be something to this.
Right. Prop 33 deals with rent control, and this is kind of a hot button issue for people because I encounter a lot of people who don't quite understand what this prop is really dealing with. But what it's supposed to deal with is people who there's a lot of rental properties that are owned by big corporations, and it wants to regulate that more to be able to control the rent so that these people who are even outside the area can't just indiscriminately raise the rent on people exorbitantly.
I think I've seen more TV commercials on this prop than any other, which means there's a lot of money behind it.
Right. So, I'm all for equitable rent control. I think most people are, but I'm not a landlord, so.
We'll see how it goes. This is another complicated proposition because it has to do with restricting how much money can be spent on drugs and how much money that's coming in from the state has to be spent on care. And it's a little bit like the issues that have gone on in the federal government where they've been allowed to negotiate Medicare can negotiate the price for prescriptions, which is what a lot of this is about. Our prescription, as we know, many people know, what we pay in the United States for prescription drugs is much higher than is paid any place else on the planet, which is why so many people will, get drugs and pharmaceuticals from Canada because it's simply so much less, and that's next door.
Well, and on the federal level, they're already making some changes that will make these prescription drugs more affordable for people because, if you need a medication, you can't afford to take it, that's very difficult for everybody, or people going into debt for medical debt is one of the biggest reasons for high levels of debt for people.
Bankruptcy, many, many times.
Yeah, this is important for people who are on prescription drugs or getting medical treatments.
What was that statistic we heard years ago that some like 90% of what people spent on medical in their entire life, they spent in the last 6 to 8 weeks of their life many times? It's the time in the hospital and the very high expensive pharmaceuticals. What's interesting is the main fiscal impact of this proposition is actually the regulations, in other words, the state having to keep track of the organizations who are having to work with this and make sure that they're not violating it.
Well, and I think part of what is shown on the television commercials is that we think of prescription drugs. You go to the pharmacy and you get the prescription drug, but a lot of these drugs are drugs that are administered like for chelation or for kidney dialysis or things like that, and the cost of that is very difficult to manage. So this is a little bit more broad of a proposition than, just saying you're limiting the price of
over-the-counter drugs.
Well, not over-the-counter, but prescription drugs at the drug pharmacy.
It provides permanent funding for Medi-Cal healthcare services. There's an existing tax, makes it permanent on managed healthcare insurance plans which, if approved by the federal government, provides revenues for medical health care services. It's almost a legislative issue because there's a tax right now on managed care organizations that helps fund Medi-Cal.
Right.
And this is basically making the tax permanent. But it's really a two-step process because we're going to make it permanent, but then we have to check with the feds to make sure it's okay. So if they approve it, then we will have a permanent tax on the managed healthcare companies to fund Medi-Cal, and that whole system will be nice and stable. But once again, we have to have it approved by the feds.
Well, and these managed health care companies are the ones who are generally against it because I guess there's a built-in financial feature for them that doesn't like the idea that this tax is going to be ongoing. So.
Right.
Yeah, this Prop 36, criminal penalties. Some people who have been victims of break-ins in their businesses have been concerned about the fact that they can't really do anything about it because it has to involve something over $950. They have very sort of special rules about what you can do. And so this would change that limitation on them and hopefully have these store owners have more recourse in more situations when it involves less than $950 or anything that involves drugs.
This has actually become an issue in Napa because I've heard of at least 2 different instances of this happening. In fact, we were in the drugstore recently and you went to look for something and it had almost been entirely cleared out. And the thing that was funny about it is you said, well, that's like one of the least expensive of the
makeups.
Line. And thinking about it now, well, probably by grabbing all that, they kept below $950.
That's an interesting point.
Yeah, and then there's also another part about it is for certain drugs that they've increased the penalty for certain drugs, and I think that this is to deal with the opioid
fentanyl
and such that we're dealing with, which really needs to be addressed every day.
So it's getting awfully close to that 8 o'clock hour. So we're only a few minutes away from the close of the polls. Hopefully you either voted or you're in line right now. Because once 8 o'clock comes, we're going to start bringing you some live election results. So stay tuned.
Yep, and this is a section that I'm especially excited about. We're going to have our former mayor, Jill Teckle, is going to come on and talk about Proposition G, which is, about taxes. So who else is better at explaining that to us than Jill Teckle?
I'm supporting Measure G because I think it's the right thing for our community to do. I think it's forward thinking. I think we have a great city council right now that's very responsible and very responsive to the community. Steve Parter is the city manager and he's a local guy who came up through the police force and became the police chief and is now has accepted the job as city manager. He really understands the community. He really understands the values of the community. And so I feel like this is a very great group to be working with the community. This sales tax will be well and very judiciously spent and will be communicated with the community, again, with the oversight group and with polls and information sessions to be sure that we're spending the money in the way the community wants. Certainly streets and roads is high and we hear that and we'll probably hear that again. It's a chance to make your hometown, the place you live, even better for families and residents and seniors to live here. And this is Napa City raising money from the sales tax that's generated here for Napa uses. And I support it, and I think it's a great opportunity for our community.
In our next segment, Kristen Miller, one of our reporters, is going to go onto the streets and talk with local Napans about what they thought about election. They did this on Halloween, so it's an especially colorful segment. Enjoy.
Kristen Miller here with Napa Valley TV 28, coming to you from downtown Napa, and we are going to talk to some people about the election. We're here with AJ, and AJ, I wanted to ask you, what do you feel are some of the most pressing issues with this year's election locally?
As being a Napa resident, I feel like a big issue is crime nowadays. There's nothing being done about it. A lot of crime thefts are going on, and it's with these new laws, you really can't do nothing about them. So I think that's a big issue going on to save these small businesses and keep our economy going. So that's a big thing I'm looking forward to. Yeah, voting wise. Yeah.
Are you? Did you already vote, or you do?
This week. Yeah, this week. I'm voting at my school. So yeah.
That's so exciting. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you.
I'm here with Pete Davies from Slippery People. And Pete, I'd like to ask you, we have this local election coming up, and what do you think are some of the biggest concerns, some of the spookiest stuff going on here?
So with local elections specifically?
Yeah.
I think the spookiest thing for me as a former middle school teacher is schools being underfunded. So to me, I can't remember which proposition it is or measure, but the one that's to give more money to schools. If that didn't pass, that would be pretty scary to me. So I think schools need to be better funded in pretty much every way.
Hey, we're downtown with V and Amy, and I want to ask you, what do you think are some of the spookiest things coming up in this election locally?
Well, you didn't warn us of the subject.
Oh, sorry.
I would have to say the thought that women could lose even more rights than they have now, that's it for me.
Yeah, I think we all know what the scariest thing is going to be, at least for some of us. Hopefully most of us this coming election, most of us will agree. Locally, I haven't paid enough attention. I apologize. But nationally, yeah, I'm going to have to agree with Amy. And not just for women, just for anybody, actually. My daughters are Mexican, so it does bother me that somebody would speak about an entire group of people the way that he has. So, yeah, we're hopeful. Fingers crossed.
Hold your breath.
We're going to vote. So
Awesome. Thank you so much, ladies. And you both look amazing. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you.
Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween. So have you guys voted yet?
That's actually funny. We were just talking about that on the drive here. I'm still kind of up in the air, but I know he is. I'm still trying to get all the facts and figure out who I want to vote for. But I'm kind of in the middle right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're doing the research.
Trying to do the research.
Okay.
Yeah.
You told me you're visiting Napa. Do you come here frequently?
No, we've been here for a total of 7 hours. This is our first time. So, yeah, very excited. Yeah.
Well, welcome to Napa.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
AJ, can you tell me what is some of the spookiest stuff this year?
Food prices are too spooky. Way too spooky, so we need to lower those. Yeah.
I'm getting scared when I go to the grocery store, right?
Yeah, I'm calculating it. I'm checking my bank account, so I'm like, can I even afford this? It's pretty spooky. Yeah.
And then your other issue that you mentioned?
The crime. Yes, that's pretty spooky too. A lot of crime being done nowadays. With the new laws, there's nothing being done about it, so we need to think about that going into this election. Save these small businesses in Napa and everywhere else.
Absolutely. There you have it, folks. Back at ya.
How about Man on the Street with Kristen?
Woman on the Street with Kristen.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for doing that, Kristen. It was a lot of work, but it did look like it was a lot of fun, so she chose a good day to do it.
And the countdown's on. We're getting closer and closer to those election results.
Exactly. And then meanwhile, we have Rose Sheehan, who's one of our board members and one of our producers here at Napa TV. She's out in the field. She's talking with various different electors. It should be very interesting to get their ideas and their thoughts on the night of election night. Like I said, this has been such an exciting election night for so many different reasons. And it's great to see people participating, And then we're going to be getting results pretty soon from John Tudor.
Exactly.
And we're putting those up as soon as we get them. It's usually starting about 8 o'clock, but it takes us a few minutes to get them onto the screen because it's not instant for us.
So we'll be reviewing those election results, those initial results that we get, see who's in the lead, see who's trailing behind, make a note of the initial results based on mail-in ballots received, as the results are not going to be final.
Yep. I always think, what I always find the most interesting are the propositions. Of course, the candidates, of course, it's interesting. But in Napa, I kind of assume that everyone who's running for stuff is a good person. They're going to do a good job. But it's interesting to see how our local people feel about the different propositions. It may not carry throughout the state. The state may be quite different. They may have very different opinions. But I always like to see, what do we think? What do my neighbors think about this? I'm a great believer in the genius of the crowd. If you get enough people together, you average out their ideas, you oftentimes are going in the correct direction. And I think Napa a lot of times chooses a good direction. So we're going to have preliminary results in a couple of minutes. And then I'm very much looking forward to Rose's interview. She always does a good job. We prepare for these elections well in advance. We have to work out, and it's usually almost all board members who work on this. And it's a lot of work to prepare for this, to get the equipment, to get everything ready to go out into the field, to bring together our crews. And it's not a simple thing. We're all volunteers.
Yep, everybody takes time out of their busy schedules to gather together and get their resources together and make this great show for you all to know what's going on election night.
And then the professionals, James and Justin, of course, have to coach us through this whole process to make sure that we're doing it correctly and get everything, done on time. And each time we manage to do it, it's kind of amazing. Each time we manage to do that. So. By the way, you probably are also watching the national elections, and one of the things they have said is that in all the battleground states, it's still too close to call. In all the battleground states, the states that are pretty much, they know which way that one is going to go. Those are coming in, but the battleground states are still very much up in the air. They've said this is going to be a very close election. So it will be interesting to see. It'll also be interesting to see with our propositions how close it is, especially the local propositions, because those people have strong opinions about them. People have very strong opinions. Anytime we ask Napans to spend money, they have very strong opinions about it. Have you ever noticed that much?
That's true.
They're very practical people. I always say, we're basically farm country with great restaurants. They're very practical people. So, but we take very good care of our people. I think one of the reasons why people love living here is that we do take very good care of our people. We're a county of 135,000 people. The wine industry does $10 billion. The tourism does about $2.5 billion. What's amazing about that is that we do actually more in tourism than Maui does with the same population. And almost their entire economy is tourism. But we have the wineries because we are, after all, a farm country. We're a ranch country. We're a place where, people where people grow things, where people make things. We are a society that we make things. We contribute. And remember, wine was the first health drink. Just remember that. Way before kale smoothies, wine was the first health drink. So do we have any results coming in?
I think we have some preliminary results coming in now.
What do you have, Lahni?
I'm trying to see.
Okay.
We're looking for the local things. I'm scrolling down.
Because all politics are local.
That's right. We didn't even talk about the state representative, the United States representative and Senate race for California.
Yep.
That looks like Mike Thompson is ahead. And
he is an evergreen
state
candidate.
Senator,
Yes.
it looks like Christopher
Caliban
is ahead.
Okay.
Oh, it's a little easier to see on the big screen.
Thank you. Yes.
So for the mayor of American Canyon, it looks like Pierre Washington is in the lead.
Okay.
With only 16% of the votes in.
Okay. And then for the city council?
The lead looks like Melissa Lamatina. Again, 16% of the votes in.
Okay.
The mayor of Calistoga, that race, it looks like a dead heat?
Really?
No.
Oh, it's
I'm
uncontested.
sorry.
Well, I think his odds are pretty good then.
There you go. So that's why the total and the total were the same.
There you go. Thank you.
For the city of Calistoga, 2 people are going to win in this race. And right now it's neck and neck between Iraes Lopez Ortega and Lisa Gift.
Okay. The mayor, city of Napa.
Looks like Scott Sedgley is ahead by quite a bit, almost 9,000 votes to just under 2,000 votes, with 25% of the vote in.
I really felt I should have put some money on that race, to tell you the truth. I just didn't.
You know that's not legal, is it?
No, I'm not a betting man anyway.
Got City Council, District 2. It looks like they were both unopposed. They were unopposed.
Beth Painter and Bernie Narvaez, yes.
Same with Bernie Narvaez.
Yes, yep.
We've got the mayor of St. Helena, and that is 35% of the vote there. It looks like Paul Doring is ahead.
Okay.
City Council, St. Helena. We have, are there 2 candidates for this?
There's
It
3.
looks like a tie. Well, I was wondering if there was
The top 2.
2 people that were going to be voted in, and there's a tie between Aaron Barak and Michelle Deasy.
That's interesting. Those are all newbies. They're first time.
Right, right. Very interesting. And the town of Yountville. Looks like Eric Knight is ahead with 46% of the vote counted.
Yes. Okay.
Oh, and there's 2, so Pam would be the next one that would be the winner of that race.
Okay, the state propositions.
Looks like Proposition 2 is looking like a yes.
Oh, okay. And Proposition 2 is the school bond. Okay. Okay.
The school trustees, I'm just looking for those. For Area 2, looks like Lisa Chu is ahead with 13% of the votes counted. For the, I don't know what,
Number 4.
no, Area 4, it looks like Eve Reiser is ahead. And in Area 5, it looks like John Henry Martin is ahead of David Garcia. And then Area 7, it looks like Julia Hart has a lead over Marie Dennett.
Okay. So I think in that case, I think it was incumbents who basically
Ran the table?
Yeah, I think so. Mostly incumbents.
speak?
Yeah. So to speak, yes.
Well, it's not over till it's over,
That's true.
but that's the preliminary results that we have come to see at this point in time. So,
Now the measures, what's going on with the measures? The school measures, our local measures. How are we doing
Measure
with
B
that? Yes.
looks like it's going to, it's ahead for yes on the bonds on Measure B.
Yes.
That was the one
Yes.
about,
But that one requires, I think it takes like, it requires a 60%.
60%?
Yeah, it requires 60%, I believe. So that's, in fact, that's why 55%. Yeah. One of the state measures that this year was to change the number of the percentage that's required in order to pass housing bonds. But we'll see. We will see. And then the
Measure U.
the transit district measure.
Looks like that passed,
Oh,
or
okay.
is going to pass.
Okay, that would be good.
And then we have Measure G, the one we've been talking about
Yes.
with the taxes for the
Yes,
schools.
yes.
That looks like, at this moment in time, it looks
Well,
like
G,
it's,
no, G is for the overall operating funds.
oh, sorry.
And the reason why it was such a good idea was because of the fact that it allows us to take advantage of all the tourists who are arriving in downtown Napa. This was, this tourism upsurge, it really happened since the river was fixed and they could start building downtown. And so now we're having this large influx of tourists. And guess what? They can contribute to our tax base.
And this has to be a simple majority for passing, I believe? There's no 60% rule for that.
I don't think so. Yeah,
Then St. Helena's measure A1.
A1, and which is A1?
That looks like a no so far.
Oh, really?
Great.
Oh, that's funny.
35% of the votes in.
And I believe that's the one about, is that the one about being a charter city? They want to change their...
Yeah, they were making all kinds of changes with their structure.
Yeah, they're really looking for
and
the
no
ways in
on
which...
A2.
They're looking for ways in which they can raise money and kind of balance out their tax issues, because they really are kind of underfunded in St. Helena. That's funny. I would have thought, just as a non-resident of St. Helena, that those would have gone through.
Well, again, not all the votes are in, so
that's true. Good point.
They're not really very broad a difference between the yes and the no votes yet. So
that's true.
Maybe there's still hope.
That's true, because they start counting early in the day, but there's so many of these are. It's funny, they count John mentions is they count the mail-in votes are done very quickly, but people who, like the drop boxes, like people go into his office and drop off the ballots, which is something we do, those are counted after. I would have thought we were moved to the front of the line, actually. Don't you think?
Well, is it time for us to go to Rose in American Canyon? And I think she's going to be talking to candidate Brando Cruz.
Oh, excellent.
Thank you, Ralph and Lahni. I am here with Mr. Cruz, who is running for American Canyon City Council. Mr. Cruz, welcome. The results are starting. Yes. So the results are starting to come in, and they look as if they're in your favor. So how are you feeling, and what will be your priorities if elected for the next 4 years?
Thank you for that question, Rose. And yes, I'm very excited about the results. It is my first election ever, and so it's quite an experience. But yeah, that just gives me the confidence that the constituents or the community has confidence in me. With my background in law enforcement and public safety, that is my number one priority. I don't know if you know this, but we're actually listed in Fortune Well magazine to be the #1 best place to retire affordably. That just came out probably yesterday in the whole nation. So one of the things I think that keeps us with that, such a great place to live and retire, is public safety. We have one of the best public services in the nation, and it is my priority to keep it that way, making sure that our contracts are going well with the sheriff's office, making sure I have a good relationship with our fire department and everything that has to do with public safety, as I've been a public safety person myself for the last 30 years of my working adult life. And thank you for that question.
Well, thank you for focusing on public safety. I'm a definite proponent of that. So thanks for joining us, Mr. Cruz. Back to you, Ralph and Lahni.
So the candidates that are coming in American County, it's interesting. It's interesting. Recently, just very recently, American Canyon was listed as one of the best places to live in California in terms of
to retire.
To retire,
affordable and good climate.
Exactly. So
and resources. But there were 2 candidates to be elected, and the projected winners are Brandon Cruz and Melissa Lamatina.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so one man and one woman.
And for mayor, the projected winner is Pierre Washington.
Yes, 50% to 42%. So that's definitely definitive. So good. Well, congratulations, candidates. It's a lot of work to run for office.
Exactly.
So. And then, I'm just hearing that Rose is getting ready to work. Rose is getting ready to start talking with
Scott Sedgley,
our mayor, and more than likely our future mayor as well, since he's been definitely ahead in the polls.
So let's see, Rose.
Yes.
Thank you, Ralph and Lahni. I'm here with Mayor Sedgley. Mayor Sedgley, the results are starting to come in. It looks like it's overwhelmingly in your favor. What is the first thing that you're going to do once reelected?
Take a week off. I think that's the first thing I'll do. But in all seriousness, it's the biggest challenge ahead of our city is, it's affordability. Our school enrollment's down. We need children. What Napa needs most is more kids. We need to fill our schools. We need to have the families that work in Napa live in Napa. So that's a big challenge that I will continue to work on. And there's some really promising opportunities ahead. We are looking at surplus land. Surplus is a term that's put on by the state of California. If we can identify surplus land, the first right of refusal are for home builders. If we want to declare it surplus, sell it, an affordable home builder comes in, we help subsidize the land, and we can really get some of these parcels. Housing's going to be denser. It's a new model. It's going to be higher. It'll still be within the city limits. We're not going to expand out into the county. We're not going to grow our city limits. So working in those confines, there's a lot of opportunity on some land that we declare surplus that we can turn into housing. And a lot of that will be in the downtown area. We're looking right now at parking lots, that maybe those surface parking lots are not the most efficient way to park cars, there's automated parking now, parking structures. We're looking at a new parking structure that will replace that parking, because we desperately need parking. There's no doubt about that. But are we better utilizing that land? The faith-based community, the churches traditionally have lots of land, big parcels. The Methodist Church, First United, they're looking at a housing project on some of their property on 4th Street. So those are exciting, and that's what I expect to do right out of the bat, is continue that work on how do we overcome this housing crisis for the people that want to live in this beautiful place. And that's also with our unhoused population. We have to keep working on that problem, and we've done a lot to get us where we are, to help those unfortunate that find themselves without permanent housing. So those are probably, that's my biggest priority moving into a next term is our housing crisis, our affordability.
Thank you, Mayor Sedgley, running for re-election, Mayor of the City of Napa. Have a great night. Appreciate you being here with us tonight. Back to you, Ralph and Lahni.
Thank you, Rose. I know that that's a topic that's very important to Scott. Scott was a carpenter for many years, and then he was with the fire department for many years. So he's been in a lot of the houses and throughout the town. Grew up here, long history with the town. He's been just, I think, a wonderful mayor. I mean, that's my opinion. I happen to know him through the Historical Society, where we're both members, and he's very committed to the project there of really knowing the history. He's a famous historian about the Napa River. He really knows a tremendous amount about the Napa River, which is, of course, was the lifeblood that got Napa started. It was really the component that made Napa prosperous from the very, very beginning. Of course, he's done very well. I think he's definitely a sure winner in this election. And, it helps when you know absolutely everybody in the town, I think. What do you think?
So congratulations to Scott with that was pretty large margin there.
Yeah, and of course
they call it a landslide.
Yeah, and of course Bernie Neveres and Beth Painter are running unopposed. I think they've done a really excellent job as council members. And Liz Alessio, who was a council member, has moved on to being a county supervisor. So we actually have a vacancy in there that the council is working on filling right now. And it's amazing that the two supervisors were voted in during the primaries, because the people who were the primary pretty much decided who was going to be the supervisor. And we now have an entirely female supervisor board. This is only the second time in California that the entire board is made up of women. And of course, in Napa, the Board of Supervisors is so important for the future of Napa, don't you think?
Definitely. So one of those two are available with a interview with Rose. So we'd like to throw it to Rose again and have an interview with her and Beth Painter.
Yes.
Thank you, Ralph and Lahni. I am here with Beth Painter, running for Napa City Council District 2. Beth, welcome. It's great to see you. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Rose. It's good to be here.
So you're running unopposed. What's your campaign like, and how is it different from previous election years?
Well, I only ran in 2020, so certainly 2024 is very different on a number of different levels. Running unopposed is certainly, it's an honor, quite honestly, that my voters and constituents have the trust and support me in that manner. It allows me really the time right now to continue to do the work of a council member and doing governance rather than necessarily focusing on campaigning. You know, I don't count anything until it's completed, but running unopposed makes me really feel confident to think about what I want to try to accomplish in the next 4 years.
So as a seasoned city council member and professional planner, how are you planning to ensure a safe and balanced future for the city of Napa?
That's a really good question. And, you know, I answer that thinking about what we've accomplished and how things have really evolved in the last 4 years. 2020 to 2024 were challenging years. 2020, as we all remember, I started on city council wearing a mask. I started being, separated from my colleagues and staff. And we were so focused on the health of our community and really the health of the world in general. So I think to answer that question, I want to sort of set a framework of what we have accomplished, one of which is completing our City of Napa 2040 general plan, which I kind of look at as the North Star and guiding light of how we want to continue to not just grow, but sustain and maintain as a city and as a community. Adopting that general plan during COVID was a real challenge. So I think looking forward and looking at sort of that notion of what is a safe and balanced community, for me, it's starting with the policies that we as a community created in our 2040 general plan. So I think that's really sort of where I would go in terms of looking at how to move forward 2024 to 2028. That's achieving a lot of what we have established in our general plan is going to require, obviously time, staff, and clearly funding. So the pace at which we develop and implement our general plan policies is really going to be dictated by how we can afford to move forward. We seek out for our policies a lot of state and federal grants. So those grants can be a real game changer when it comes to trying to look at how to achieve those goals. And I think that's really how we look at creating a balanced community, is maintaining that vision that we created together. I think we also, a couple of other things to just point to is looking at the needs of our locals as we develop and grow a more tourist-based economy. And there's lots of ways that we do that in terms of trying to make improvements to our parks and recreational amenities and services, how we develop our neighborhoods, how we build housing, and how we accomplish our road improvements. One thing that I hear a lot from in terms of what I hear from constituents is the quality of our roads. I think that's something that, probably many of the council members would talk about. But for me, it's not just about filling potholes. It's about traffic flow. It's about traffic safety. It's about road safety for everyone, and trying to achieve that quality and standard in our local road network. It is a big task, an enormous task, and something that will be really important to me in the next 4 years. And the last thing I'll mention is I have spent quite a bit of time in the last 4 years looking at how we actually educate and bring forward all of the issues around climate change from the perspective of how we educate the community, as well as what we can do locally. You know, we as the city of Napa are not going to solve the global problems of climate change, but we can participate in making changes in our own personal lives and in our own way of doing business as a city, to try to be a really good participant in looking at climate change. So that's something that I would really like to continue to work on for the next 4 years.
Yeah, you certainly touched on a lot of our biggest issues from feedback from the community that I've heard. So thank you so much for incorporating that into what your focus is going to be moving forward. I know you've been through a lot in the last 4 years. We've had some challenging times, and I really appreciate your service and what you've done for our community. So thank you for joining us tonight. It's been a real pleasure.
Well, thank you, Rose. And I just want to leave everybody with a sense of appreciation for participating in this election. Voting is something that maybe it's a privilege, but it's really, truly a responsibility. And everyone's participation in this election is just critically important. So thank you.
Well said, Beth, even as running as an unopposed city council member. So thank you again.
Thank you.
And Ralph and Lahni, back to you.
Thank you, Rose, and congratulations to Beth. Even though you were unopposed, it's still an achievement to be elected.
Exactly. So now we're going to move up valley to Yountville. We're going to see how it's going up there. And what do we have on our coming out from?
I thought we were going to check in with the national.
Oh, we're going to check in with the national. Oh, let's look at the national.
We want to see how California voted in the national.
We want to see how Napa's voting in the national. To see, see how our local
Yountville can hold for a minute.
Yeah, they can wait. What do you have? You can read it off the screen. Oh, there it is.
Well, it looks like Californians, or our Napans voted for Kamala Harris, 18,889 so far, to 6,839 for Donald Trump.
So about 1 to 3. So, okay.
Yeah, 22,000 votes in out of 85,000 votes, 26% in.
Wow, okay. Interesting.
And how did we do in the Senate race?
I mean, it is, after all, she is a Californian. It'd be kind of hard not to favor her, you know.
How did we do on that Senate race?
That's really interesting. This is an important Senate race.
We've got Adam Schiff. Now, this is for the full term and a partial term. Right. He's got to finish out the partial term and then be voted for the full term. So this is like a double header.
Right.
Right. Okay, so he's got almost the identical amount of votes there, with 26% in over Steve Garvey.
Well, this is interesting. This is like the first time that California has not had 2 women senators in how long?
Right.
I mean, we've had 2 women senators for a lot of years, and suddenly we're going to have 2 men. That's interesting. That's quite a switch.
Right.
I guess this is a little a balancing act. You know, it's interesting, that especially with Schiff, because he was so prominent during the January 6th hearings.
And then we have the state Senate race for District 3, and that looks like Christopher Gabaldon is ahead with 13,914, at least for the California votes, right?
Well, this is California.
26% of the votes.
Oh, you mean the Napa votes?
Or the Napa votes.
The Napa votes. Okay. And then what else? Who else do we have going on?
We've got United States Representative for Congress in District 4. Oh, we did that. Mike Thompson?
Mike Thompson, yes.
15,392 votes?
Yeah, the incumbent, yes.
Exactly. So that's how your fellow friends and neighbors are voting in this election on the national stage.
And then the State Assembly.
Cecilia Aguilar Curry, she's an incumbent as well, 14,718 votes.
Yeah. The incumbents keep doing very well. Keep doing their best. People are pleased with. We're pleased with how they're doing for us. They're doing a good job. So incumbents always do have a natural advantage. I mean, especially for someone like Mike Thomas, you know, he's been in the Congress long enough. He knows a lot of people. He's on committees. He understands our issues. He's able to address them, and also in the state. I mean, you know, Napa in this part of the state has, you know, unique needs that, you know, the other parts of the state don't have to address. So.
So now we're going to throw back to Rose for an interview with Joe Tagliaboschi from Yountville.
Thank you, Ralph and Lahni. I am here with Mr. Joe Tagliaboschi. He is running for Yountville Town Council. Mr. Tagliaboschi, the results are starting to come in. They don't quite look as if they're in your favor as of yet. What are you thinking and how are you feeling right now in this moment?
Well, of course, I'm disappointed. It's always difficult to take on incumbents. They ran a great campaign. I want to congratulate them on their campaigns. I hope that what we discussed and what the folks who voted for me wanted to happen, oversight for budgets, taking on fiscal responsibility more seriously, getting more folks involved in the YES property and helping to make better decisions on the YES property and preparing ourselves for emergencies continues to be a discussion at the council. Even though I'm not going to be a member of the council, unfortunately, I will continue to help advocate for those positions and look forward to what the council is going to do in the upcoming term.
Thank you, Mr. Tagliaboschi. We appreciate your service to the community of Yountville. Back to you, Ralph and Lahni.
Well, and I think we're going to switch gears for a minute because we have one of our own board members who was running for the Board of Trustees for the school board for Area 2. And he's very passionate about the school board. And I think that Rose had an interview with him as well. And if we have that ready, we could say hello to Rose and Kevin.
Thank you, Ralph and Lahni. I have Mr. Kevin West here with me. He's running for Napa Valley Unified School District, Board of Trustee, Area Number 2. Mr. West, the results are starting to come in. It doesn't look as if it's in your favor as of yet. What are you, how are you feeling? What's next for you? And how would you stay involved in the community if not elected?
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me on your show first. It's really hard for a non-incumbent or the challenger to win an election. So we're definitely going to try that again. I want to encourage parents to continue to be active in the school. It's clear to me that in general, people are not happy with what's going on in Napa Valley Unified School District because it's the first time in 20 years that all of the open positions have been contested at the same time. So I encourage parents to get involved in the school board, to go attend school board meetings. One of the things I do, I have a TV show that teaches people to participate in government. I teach that live, and I'm often on podcasts and radio shows teaching people exactly that, how to participate in your government and how to keep your elected representatives accountable. So I'm not going to stop being involved. I am going to keep going with helping people participate in their government and to make sure government's doing what we want them to do.
Thank you, Mr. West. That does make a statement where every incumbent is being challenged this year. Well, we appreciate your service. We appreciate what you have coming on in the future and what you're doing now and what you will be doing. You have a great night, and thank you.
Thank you, Rose.
Thank you. And Rose has been just a wonderkind this evening, getting the technology to work for all these different candidates and putting it together so quickly. It's just been wonderful. Thank you so much, Rose. I know it's been a lot of work just arranging these, making sure you can get everyone on the on the Zoom. Thank God for Zoom. It's been a wonderful technology. It's been a huge help for us.
Well, we are a technology organization, so hopefully we can handle
technology.
it.
It's funny, during COVID, our team was so essential for maintaining the ability to do all of the meetings. We were able to get the various different council members together and in all their different locations, and then be able to have people them see each other, and then also have our community see it so we can maintain our transparency. Transparency is so important in government. As Kevin was saying, people being involved is so important. Well, how can you be involved if it's not transparent?
Exactly.
And it's so right about our school system. Napa is funded at the minimum, unfortunately, because of our tax basis, because we are a farm community, and it's why we need to have these special bonds in order to maintain our buildings. But also, we actually helped remodel all of the different cities' council chambers throughout the COVID and after, so that we could improve the AV in all of the different places. If you ever watch the meetings, you'll see how clear they are, how good the sound is. Some of our, I have to tell you that some of the towns had some very antiquated systems. And so basically our team had to go in and basically replace it from the ground up. But we brought it into the 21st century. So it really has made a huge difference in terms of our ability to have a truly transparent system.
So I know you will join me in our appreciation for all the people here at Napa Valley TV, because they really are a great resource for the whole community, and they do a lot of really great service.
Yeah, I mean, just think of how much time you spend every day looking at screens. When Napa TV started 45 years ago or so, that was, the only time you spent looking at screens was when you watched television in the evening with your family. Now we depend upon it. And so, Napa TV is the central training ground for our community in this type of technology. And we do it out of a very small space that, as the fundraising chair, I have been working very hard on improving with limited success. So anyone who would like to help with that, I would greatly appreciate. Anyone who's feeling generous, feel free to share.
We were hoping to have some updates by now, but I don't think that they have updated the results yet. So it would just be a recap of the initial results that we talked about before.
Which is good. We need to look at how did our different measures do. Also, I imagine that the city of Napa, the city of American Canyon, the mayor's race, it looks like Pierre Washington is going to win over David Aro. Congratulations, Pierre. Thank you, David.
And then in American Canyon for city council, we had Brandon Cruz and Melissa LaMattia.
Brando, like Marlon Brando.
I'm sorry. Brando Cruz and Melissa LaMattina. I've been doing very well with these names.
Those are two great names.
Okay. Are both projected winners. And of course, our mayor, Scott Sedgley, ran away with it.
Yes. And
projected as the winner.
And thank you, Tuesday Allison, for participating.
Exactly.
Town of Yountville. We have, it looks like
Pam Reeves.
Pam Reeves and Eric Knight are going to be the two new council members. Though Eric was a council member before. I think he's an incumbent. I recognize that name.
And in St. Helena's mayor race, Paul Doring, who is the incumbent, also is projected to be the winner?
At 65%. So I imagine people are very pleased with the job he's doing. Of course, he was one of the people that we worked with as our team redid their entire council chamber. So I remember that quite well from hearing about it from our executive director.
City council members in St. Helena are Aaron Barak and Michelle Desai.
Yes. Congratulations.
Projected winners.
Yes, and thank Hector Merrick. Karen did not get quite enough votes, but thank you, Hector, for participating. And the city council for Calistoga is, who do we have? We have
Irais Lopez Ortega.
Yes.
And Lisa Gift are projected winners there. Marion Villalba.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. I think we're going to be speaking with Lisa Gift. In fact, I think Rose is reaching out to her as well. So that will be interesting to hear what her ideas for going forward.
The school board trustee, looks like the projected winner is Lisa Chu.
Yes, and Kevin did not win, but Kevin, thank you for running.
And in Area 4, the projected winner is Eve Reiser.
Yes, and Devin Jones, thank you for running, Devin.
Area number 5 looks like John Henry Martin.
At 42% so far.
Over David Garcia,
Yes.
but that's still pretty close.
That's still pretty close.
So no projected winner there.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a rare race with the other results that we've been seeing, right?
And then area number 2 is the projected winner is Juliana Hart. Yes.
With Marie Dennett. Thank you for your valiant efforts.
Yes, exactly. Participation matters, after all.
Let's see how those measures are doing. We'll recap them.
Yes.
A1 in City of St. Helena. Should the City of St. Helena establish itself as a charter city? It looks like the votes are leaning towards no.
No. 45% to 49%.
Again, that's close, though.
Yeah, still
very
close. Exactly. So.
Measure A2 for St. Helena. Should the City of St. Helena impose a tax of 1.5% to 3% on property sales over $1 million to fund general government purposes? Again, that looks like a big ol' no.
No. Okay. 48 to 47%.
No.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm on to measure
it was
B.
50.
50?
This slide has
we're
changed.
on the next slide. I wasn't quick enough.
Yes, see, 53 to 41. So
thank you. Oh, that's
a bigger difference.
definitive,
Although
yeah, well, that was money.
nothing has been called. So
Nothing's been called, right?
Measure B in the City of St. Helena. That's a very close one. It looks like the no's might nose out.
Yes, but it's still close. 48% to 47%, and that is the one. Is that the one for the hotel for agritourism?
You're right. And then Measure B, the Unified School District. Should Napa Valley Unified School District authorize $230 million in bonds to improve school facilities? That looks like it could pass this time. 48% to 44% for no.
Okay.
So we'll have to keep an eye on that.
We'll have to see.
Measure G.
No.
Should the City of Napa impose a 1% sales tax increase on to fund general government purposes? That looks like a yes.
That's definitive, 51% to 41%.
That's a pretty good percentage
Napa's willing to spend money. Well, it's asking our visitors to spend money too.
The sales tax. Well, the people who live here pay sales tax
They'll pay it too. But we go to the more reasonable restaurants than they do.
But our services are important to us.
Sorry, we're in the tourism business, so we're very conscious of the two different communities that use Napa.
Exactly.
So we love our visitors. Now, it's interesting that the measure, the third measure B for St. Helena, that was basically so they could set up a new zone, so Charles Krug could work with a hotel company to put a hotel on the Charles Krug property. And so that's why I was a little surprised. I would have thought that would have passed because they have the Alila Hotel up there. We have Meadowwoods. That's an area that doesn't, as we discussed before, an area that doesn't have a lot of hotel space.
Well, let's not forget about Measure U.
Yes.
Because that's the Napa Valley Transportation Authority. Should Napa County continue its 0.5% transportation sales tax to pay for road and street repairs, highway improvements, and subsidizing transit for veterans, seniors, students, and people with disabilities? 66.8% say yes.
So apparently,
we like good roads.
Apparently, we're not the only ones who are a little tired of those potholes.
There you go. We shouldn't even have potholes. We don't have snow. We don't have salt.
Right. We shouldn't have potholes.
Yes.
So,
Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone in Napa who said, yes, let's spend some money.
So I think we may have Rose waiting for us with a interview with Lisa Gift.
Yes.
Well, thank you, Ralph and Lahni. I have Council Member Lisa Gift here from the City of Calistoga running for re-election. And Lisa, the results are starting to come in. They look as if they're in your favor. What will you be focused on if elected based on the feedback from your constituents? What will be your major focus over the next 4 years if elected?
Yeah, thank you for the question. So in addition to the housing and water issues that I've covered and updating our aging infrastructure, one of the next biggest issues facing our community are the fairgrounds. With the acquisition of these fairgrounds inside of the city limits, we have complete control, but that means that we've also added an entirely new department to our city. And we budgeted close to $1 million without any clear plan to generate that type of revenue from the property in the immediate future. I envision a strategic plan that not only generates revenue, but also transforms the fairgrounds into a beautiful gathering space for our community. As a world-class destination, our efforts must reflect that same standard of excellence, but to achieve this, we need to prioritize thoughtful planning and extensive community engagement.
That's a phenomenal goal to have for the next 4 years, and I'm sure we'll see great things from you if elected back into City Council. So thank you, Councilmember Gift, for joining us. And back to you, Ralph and Lahni.
Well, thank you, Rose, and thank you, Lisa. That was very interesting. I love hearing people's vision for the future about what they're planning for the town. And Calistoga is just a remarkable little town.
It's really having a big upswing.
Yeah, and
too.
It's interesting that so many of the tasting rooms that are in the downtown, they're all run by women. I mean, we've noticed that a number of times in some wonderful little places.
The year of the woman.
It is the year of the woman, especially in Calistoga. So, by the way, you know that we just recently the Historical Society did a whole presentation. They did a whole presentation on the healing center of Napa when in the 1800s of all the hot springs that were in Napa at that time and all the great spas. It was a great exhibit. We're working on a little documentary about it here at the station.
Well, and you know, it's been great talking to these local candidates because we see the numbers, we see the figures, but when you get to see these candidates, especially if there's somebody from a different area than you're in, they become familiar faces, and it just makes you more connected to the whole election process. So thank you to the candidates for taking the time to do these interviews with Rose, and of course, thank you to Rose, who has yet another interview with Hector Marroquin, who was running for the St. Helena City Council. Rose, over to you.
Thank you, Ralph and Lahni. I am here with Mr. Marroquin. He is running for St. Helena City Council. Welcome, Mr. Marroquin.
Thank you.
And so the results are starting to come in, and they don't quite look as if they're in your favor yet. What do you how are you feeling? What would you like to say to the community? How will you stay engaged in your community service to St. Helena residents?
Well, thank you for the question. And I just want to say I'm pleased and honored to, at least, if it does not go in my favor, to have gone through the process. I've met a tremendous amount of wonderful people through this process and got to hear a number of great things on what their concerns were. And I hope I can continue on. But if not, I just want the people of St. Helena to know that I'm still going to be here. I'm not going anywhere. I promised myself to maintain my connection to my neighbors and my friends. And in this case, affordable housing is still dear and true to my heart. And so perhaps I will try to help out with our town, St. Helena, a little bit more, and just to try to get these projects off the ground. And if that means more communication on my part to help get these projects unstuck, I'll do that.
That would be absolutely amazing. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Marroquin. We're looking forward to seeing you out there as accessible as ever. All your work through the Masonic Lodge and in the community is certainly appreciated.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Ralph and Lahni, back to you.
Thanks again, Rose. These have been great. And we thought we might want to look at the state propositions. We haven't even really talked about them, the statewide propositions.
Right, and we have some results in. So at 14.4% of the vote is in, I think.
Exactly. Unofficial election results. This is an interesting point. Results will be certified by December 13th, 2024. Ralph brought that up earlier in the evening about that there is a new rule where you can't certify the results of the election until December 13th. So that was kind of interesting.
Yeah, John Tudor was not happy about that because Napa was always one of the first ones to certify every year, and now it's not in fail race.
Exactly. But you'll have an idea.
Right.
You'll have an idea.
Okay.
So the proposition titles were, Proposition 2 was a bond for public schools.
Right.
That looks like it's going to be a yes. The constitutional right to marriage, Prop 3, that looks like that's going to be a yes.
It was changing the language, basically.
Bonds for water, wildfire, and climate risks. That was a big old yes for Proposition 4.
Yeah.
Prop 5, the bonds for affordable housing and infrastructure. It looks like that's voted down.
Oh, wow.
Eliminates forcing inmates to work. That was Proposition 6. That also gets a no. Prop 32, raising the minimum wage. That looks like another no. I really thought that was going to be more widely received after the last raise of the minimum wage was so successful. Local government residential rent control, 33, that's a no. I know that was hotly contested. Restrictions on spending for prescription revenues, 34, that's a yes.
That's looking good.
Yes to 35, permanent funding for Medi-Cal.
Yeah.
Yes to 36, increased sentencing for certain drug and theft crimes.
Right. Basically for so many problems with shoplifting.
So 4 no's and
it's interesting.
7, is that 7 yeses?
Yeah.
6 yeses.
What's interesting, both of the health ones, the prescription drug spending and the Medi-Cal funding, they both went right through the state. Californians love to believe in health. As I'm glad to see the school bond went through. That's very good, because the schools really do need their help. And the climate bond, of course, once again, continuing to address our issues with fires.
Well, it's interesting. In years gone by, I've always been surprised about so many no's. And so I'm surprised now in the other direction that there were as many yeses as they were. So maybe we're making some progress.
Well, I think California's, especially with the fire and climate issues we've been seeing, and we're so sensitive to them here, people have become very proactive.
Exactly.
They're looking to the future. They're seeing the issues show up now. And we're going to take a.
Well, I think we have. An announcement from Napa Valley TV.
Yes.
Our own.
Other people should get involved in Napa TV. Do it. If you have that ability or not, try it. I didn't, and I tried it, and I was nervous, trying to do a TV show for what never done. And sometimes it's tough, but if you don't try it, then you never know it is really something for you. And then when you find out that it is, it's a lot of fun.
This is a vehicle to make yourself known, and to share things that are vitally important to you, to take your 30 years of life or your 100 years of life and share what you've learned with the larger community.
Napa TV is a First Amendment organization. We are the organization that ensures that our First Amendment rights are protected on the airways. We are the only place in which you can say what you think without censorship.
My advice for anyone that wants to get involved is to get involved. And I'm talking about everyone watching this right now. If you have an interest in wanting to get involved on Napa Valley Television, please do so, because we will provide you the tools, we will provide you the training, and even if it's something that's not for you, maybe you say, you know what, it's not for me. It's still a great takeaway of something that you can use with a skill set for the years to come. So please get involved. Please check us out on our website, email us, call us. We're always available, and we're happy to have new members.
Boy, Napa Valley TV, they do so much for the whole valley, and we really appreciate them. James and Justin and Jessica, you have to have a J to work here.
Apparently.
In your name, but they are just so wonderful and talented. We appreciate them so much.
Not to forget the other, our team of part-timers that go out to all the different council chambers and manage the recordings there.
Right. They are all, their names all start with a J as well.
Well, they should.
And if they don't, I just add that in there. Lookman, Nicole.
Yes.
All right. Well, I think that we have Rose with just another interview with Scott Owens, who was one of the candidates running for the Board of Trustees for the school district in District 6.
Thank you, Ralph and Lahni. I have Scott Owens here. He is running for Napa Valley College Board of Trustees, and in particular, District 6. Welcome, Scott. Thanks so much for being on, live with us. And we have the results starting to come in, and it's not looking as if it's quite in your favor as of yet. So if the results don't go your way this election, what's next for you?
Rose, thanks for the question. Well, hope springs eternal. I sure hope those results continue. We'll see what happens. And no matter the outcome, Rose, the experience that I have had in this campaign, in this election season, connecting with voters, residents of District 6 from North Napa to St. Helena has been amazing. It's just been wonderful to hear from neighbors, from voters, and as a nonpartisan representative, to hear from voters of all registration types about their concerns about Napa Valley College. So I will continue to remain involved in the community, certainly with the town of Yountville and its community foundation, and supporting the Napa Valley Transportation Authority and how it serves the people of Napa County. And in District 6, I think it's really important to understand the development of the Upper Valley campus in St. Helena. That's something I heard from a lot of voters in District 6, and I know there's been some changes there with the city of St. Helena and that campus. So it's something that I plan to continue to stay involved in and aware of. And in my personal life, I will continue my work at the California Healthcare Foundation, assuring or working towards health equity and access for all Californians.
That's brilliant. I just really, truly appreciate all the service that you bring to the community in and out of office and your boards and commissions that you serve on. Back to you, Ralph and Lahni.
Thank you, Rose. Well, we're down to the final few minutes of the live broadcast, and we would like to mention that these results are only initial results. So make sure that you check with the website, countyofnapa.org, and click on the general election results to see the latest updates as they appear. And we want to take a minute to thank Rose Sheehan for being our virtual correspondent, thank Kristen for being our woman in the street, and all of the local candidates. Thank you, and also especially the candidates that took their time to be interviewed and for our live election coverage.
You know, Napa TV is run by volunteers, and we want to ask you to get involved. We want you to find out how do you do your own show? You know, it's so important. I mean, it really helps you develop your ideas. It helps you get ideas that matter to you out into the world. So go to Napa Valley, NapaValleyTV.org. You can find about us. You can drop by the studio. We're open, 5 days a week, regular business hours. Come by and see the studio. You can volunteer. You can learn how to use the cameras. You can learn how to develop your audio skills.
Become a member.
Become a member. It is a tremendous way to improve your skills at a time when video has never been more important than it is today. So
that's a wrap.
Thanks.
Thank you, everyone, and good night.
Good night.